you look lovely. And the kids are off at school. Because it really turns me on, you know, to see you standing there in your dressing gown and slippers with pink curlers in your hair. But she wasn't feeling amorous, so I said romantic things like, you haven't made the bed yet. Would you care to test the springs? Well, this made her eyes a sparkle and she smiled with her consent. At breakneck speed with me in the lead, 'twas down to the room we went. Now, I know most of you people know what love and all entails, so I'm going to skip a verse or two and spare the details, except there we were together in the throes of passion when I said, excuse me there, me darling, but do you have a pen? And a little bit of paper, see, a poem's formed in me head. And then before I know it, I'm the only one in bed, because my love's flown out the doorway in a tangled dressing gown. Well, I thought she'd gone for pen and paper so I could write things down. But no, she was gone for ages. There was no way I could think, with the smashing and the crashing of the dishes in the sink. And not one word can I remember about the poem that came that day, except for just the title of the one that got away. Thank you. And get away they do. But there's not very much you can do about that, I'm afraid. As you've probably ascertained by now, folks, the world of Australian bush poetry is inhabited by some very colourful characters indeed. And one of the most unusual chaps I ever met was a fellow by the name of Johnny Johansson. Johnny was very much a man's man. He called a spade a spade. No such thing as political correctness in Johnny's book. If he wanted to say it, he'd bloody well say it. And he says it with great passion in this poem called Song of a Nation. Cutting cane in northern Queensland, digging spuds at Bungaree, drinking beer out round the Alice, branding stock at Kimberley. From our furthest city Darwin to that southern place St Kilda, from Perth across to Sydney, we've all sung Waltzing Matilda. It is sung in all the school halls, sung by yellow, white and black. For 100 years we've sung it, firstly up the Winton track. It was there that Banjo wrote it, just a catchy bushman song. And I bet old Banjo didn't realise it'd waltz around this long. You know, the way this song has took on, every day it's learnt by more. And I would wager my possessions that it's heard 100 score. Aussies sang it while in battle. Many sang it as they died. Kaiser Billy couldn't stop them, and by God, old Kaiser tried. At those Aussie Rules Grand Finals, 100,000 fans are heard. Stand and sing Waltzing Matilda. Never faulty with one word. For where else but in Australia would 100,000 leap to their feet and sing in chorus about a swagman that steals sheep? There's a Greek bloke here beside me, just in front to Rag Trade Jew. There's the cook from Arfong's restaurant. They are singing good and true. Songs they come and songs they go, with new ones each and every day. But Aussies prove Matilda is our song, and here to stay. Lonely on the streets of Paris, in New York or London Strand, sing our song, Waltzing Matilda. Grab an Aussie, shake his hand. You don't need to wear a Kubras, flash a boomerang or two, call people mate or cobber whilst you play the didgeridoo. We will join you in a chorus, for no matter where we roam, there's only one Matilda, and Australia is her home. Yeah, nothing wrong with a little bit of early morning patriotism, is there, folks, eh? A great little poem there. All right, the next poem I'd like to do for you is called Tomorrow. It was first adapted into a poetry format by a chap called Keith McHenry, based on a song by the vaudevillian author Lou Scully, circa the late 1800s. Tomorrow, by Keith McHenry. I started on a journey, last year it was sometime, to a little town called Morrow on the Queensland country line. Now, not much of a traveller, and I really didn't know that Morrow is the hardest place a bloke can try to go. I went down to the station to get my ticket there for the next train to go tomorrow. See, I didn't have a care. Said I, my friend, I'd like to go tomorrow and return no later than tomorrow, for I haven't time to burn. he said to me, "Now let me see if I have heard you right. You'd like to go tomorrow and return tomorrow night. You should have gone tomorrow yesterday and come back again today. For the train that goes tomorrow is a mile upon its way. Now, if you'd gone tomorrow yesterday, well, it's simple, don't you see? You could have gone tomorrow and got back today at 3. For the train today, tomorrow, if the schedule is right, today it goes tomorrow and returns tomorrow night." I said, "Now hang on, hold it there. Can we please wind that back? There is a town called Morrow on the line, now tell me that." "There is," he said, "but take from me a kind little tip. To go from here tomorrow is a 14-hour trip. The train today, tomorrow, leaves today 8:45, and 10:30 tomorrow is the time it should arrive. Now, travellers yesterday, tomorrow, who get tomorrow today, they come back again tomorrow. That is, if they don't stay. OK, mate, you know it all, but kindly tell me, pray, how do I get tomorrow if I leave this town today?" "Oh, you cannot go tomorrow any more today, for the train that goes tomorrow is a mile upon its way." I was getting rather aggro. I commenced to curse and swear. The train had gone tomorrow and had left me standing there. I decided then that bugger it. I loathe the Queensland scrub and I would not go tomorrow. I just went back to the pub. Thank you, folks. Thanks very much. As I said, we have 3 featured poets here this weekend. I'm one of them. Colin Driscoll is the other, and Ben Eggleton is the third. But we'd also like you, good folks out there, to join us. So if we have anybody that'd like to come up and do a poem this morning, just come and see us at the side of the stage, put your name on the list, and we'll make sure that anybody that wants to go this morning can have a go. We can't be any fairer than that, can we? All right, OK, it's my great pleasure now to bring a man to the stage who I've not seen for many, many years. One of Australia's premier writers of comedy bush verse and a bloody good performer as well, all the way from Ararat. Good old friend of mine, Mr. Colin Driscoll.
Thanks, Graeme. How you going, folks? Nice of you to come out in this early morning. Come and say good day. Nice and foggy, wasn't it? Eh? Yeah, I'm from I live in Ararat now, but I grew up in a little place called Barclay, which is at the foot of the Pyrenees Ranges up there. Anyone know where Barclay is? Yeah, not the Barclay Roadhouse up in Queensland. I'm talking Barclay. Just over the hill from Redbank. Barclay was a one-horse town until the horse died of colic. I went out and bought a quad bike. Now it's one of those one quad bike towns, but that's progress for you. But it was a great place to grow up. Grew up on a wheat and sheep farm. I was the youngest of 5. Had an older brother, older sister, and mum and dad were both older than me as well. But that was a really good place. They're awake early, aren't they, this lot? Really good place to grow up. And, if we weren't going to school, we were playing sport on the weekends. And remember those things, weekends? We tend to work all of them these days, but we were going to school or playing sport on the weekends, or in our spare time we'd be out rabbiting and that sort of stuff. And it was a great place to grow up, as I said, but we had one extra little trick up our sleeve, me and my brother and sister. We were a bit privileged because my old man used to play the banjo in the dance band called the Driscoll Orchestra, which meant that every second Saturday night we'd get thrown the old 1950 Chevy and we'd chuff off to one of the local towns to their halls. Remember those things, halls? Yeah, we don't use them all that much, but a lot of them are still around there. And it was a great opportunity for a good-looking young fella like me to get out and strut his stuff and try his luck with the ladies. But there was nothing better than our annual Barclay dance, the one dance that we had at the Barclay Hall every year. And folks, I'm not saying that this is a true story, but some of the names have been changed just to protect the innocent. And look, it's a classic example of what can go wrong in a young fella's life when he's got the very best of intentions in mind. It's called a failed romance. Well, Friday night's here at last. Week's as good as done. Yeah, time to let me hair down, time to go and have some fun. So I'm putting on me body shirt and me best bell-bottom pants, because tonight's the night I try me luck at the annual Barclay dance. Now, I borrowed Dad's new aftershave. I doubt he's going to miss it, but see, I want me face to smell real nice if some chick's going to kiss it. And I hope that Amy's going, because, gee, she sure can dance, and, well, I reckon she might like me, so I might be half a chance. As I make me way into the hall, try to act real smooth, toss $5 to Uncle Murd inside the ticket booth. Then I mingle with the other lads as we survey the crowd, but it's hard to hear each other talk because the music's fairly loud. Don Hart's on the piano, but he doesn't play alone. My old man's on the banjo, Uncle on the saxophone. And the dancers on the dance floor try and keep that circle tight as they dance the Pride of Erin to Good Night, Irene, Good Night. You remember that, don't you? But right next to that dance floor was a stupid place to stand, because before I knew it, Evelyn Good had grabbed me by the hand. And now I was up there dancing. There was nothing I could do. So I may as well cut loose and show these girls a step or two. Oh, I spun, I skipped, I slid, I dipped, and I brought that dance alive. And I turned that Pride of Erin into a slick progressive jive. And then in the twist of fate that only Cupid could arrange, I ended up with Amy on the final partner change. I held her tight, I spun around and swept her off her feet, and then I took her tender hand in mine and returned her to her seat. As I sat down beside her, my head was in the spin. We looked each other in the eyes and we both began to grin. Oh, jeez, I'd never felt this way before. My pulse began to rush, but I knew that she could feel it too as her cheeks began to blush. I thought I'd better make me move before the moment passed, so I took a breath, I leaned across, and I politely asked, "Oh, that fragrance that you're wearing, it's lovely. Is it new?" She said, "Yes, they call it romance, and I wore it just for you." Mate, I'm growing fast in confidence and feeling pretty brave. Just wait until she gets a whiff of Dad's new aftershave. Well, I put my arm around her and it was heaven just to hold her as she snuggled up beside me with her head upon me shoulder. And then came that special moment I'd been dreaming of all week, as she slowly raised her eyes to mine and kissed me on the cheek. Yeah, but that was when it happened, folks. When I felt me heartstrings break, as I realised by her spitting, I'd made a huge mistake. She just slapped me and then stormed off as I sat there in disgrace. The kid who went out dancing wearing Dettol on his face. Oh, shit. Mate, I must have mixed the bottles up. It's a logical explanation. Well, it looked and smelt like aftershave, and geez, it gave the same sensation. Well, I suppose it didn't matter much. The damage had been done, and as far as Amy was concerned, my race had just been run. But I won't let that deter me in me quest for true romance. Nah, I got a whole year to redeem myself before next year's Barclay dance. Thank you. He's right, mate. I've got her up a bit higher. Graeme mentioned before about turning off the mobile phones and stuff like that. In fact, he found a phone and he gave an announcement out. I said, why didn't you just ring the person, tell them to give you a call? But, yeah, if we've got our mobile phones that's off, that's really good, folks. I've had to turn mine off because I've got a mate he just kept ringing me all the way down here from Ararat, 2 hours. He rang me about 5 times. He rang me last night when I got back after the bushwhackers. He was ringing. I had to block the number. Anyway, I said to him, I answered it, and I said, what's going on, mate? He said, oh, it's me and the missus. He said, we're having a few difficult times. He said, I said, why? What's happened? He said, I don't know. He said, there's an argument started. I don't know how it started, when it started, why it started, but it bloody well started and it will not stop. I said, what'd you do? Something stupid like forget her birthday again this year? He said, no. He said, actually, I remembered her birthday this year and I was pretty proactive. Instead of going out and buying her an iron board cover like I do every other year, he said, I said to her, look, darling, your birthday's coming up, which impressed her that I remembered, and he said, whatever you want. Money's no object, you just name it, I'll get it for you. She said, money's no object. He said, that's right. She said, well, I'd like something nice and shiny that goes from 0 to 110 in 4 seconds. So he bought her the bathroom scales, and I said, mate, maybe that's where the argument started. He said, no, he said, she got a bit grumpy, but I made it up to her. He said, I took her out for tea. I said, oh, what restaurant? And he said, well, we didn't actually go to a restaurant. And I thought, oh, here we go. I said, where'd you take her? He said, well, we went to our high school reunion. And I said, how'd that go? He said, pretty good. We were all at a big table there, caught up with some old mates, old friends. Music was great, food was fantastic. He said, but halfway through the night, there's this bird sitting up the other end of the table, and she's getting pretty drunk, and she's laughing and pointing at me and carrying on. And the missus said, who's that bird up there that's giving you a hard time? She's looking at you, laughing and shaking. I said, don't worry about her, darling. I said, we went out in year 12. He said, we went out for about 6 months. But he said, when we left school, I dumped her like a hot spud and I haven't seen her since. He said, she hit the grog. She couldn't handle it. She's hit the grog and, she's drunk again tonight. And his wife said, geez, you wouldn't reckon anyone could celebrate for that long, would you? I said, mate, maybe that's where the argument started. But he said, no. He said, look, I've given her space. He said, she's been feeling... He said, I caught her standing in front of the mirror the other night, sobbing away, full-length mirror. She's totally naked, sobbing away. And I said, what's wrong, darling? She said, well, just look at me. She said, I got bags under my eyes. I got grey roots in my hair. I got a double chin. These once perky puppies are now looking at me feet. She said, I got cellulite in me bum and bloody black hangnail toenails and floppy tuck-up lady arms. She said, God. And he said, darling, what can I do to make you feel better? And she said, well, just say something positive about me. He said, well, at least your eyesight's pretty good. I said, mate. But he said, no, look, I'll give her space. He said it was Sunday morning and she was sleeping there, snoring away. And so he said, it was 5:30. He said, I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'll slip out and give her space. He said, I got out of bed and I picked up my clothes off the floor where they always are. Went downstairs, got dressed, fed the dog. He said, I wandered out into the garage, through the laundry into the garage. He said, I got into the ute, hitched up the boat, popped up the door. He said, I backed out into an absolute torrential downpour, howling winds. He said, I put the ABC radio on the newsreader, said it's 4 degrees outside, gale force winds, seas up to 3 metres. He thought, bugger this, I'm not going fishing. So he drove back in and parked the ute and parked the boat, and he went back in and let the dog back out again. He snuck upstairs and stripped off, and he said, I slid in the bed beside her and I snuggled up to her, and he said, bugger me, she snuggled back. He thought, this is all right. He said, I leaned over and whispered in her ear, it's 4 degrees outside, howling gale, seas up to 3 metres. She said, is it, sweetheart? And my stupid husband's gone fishing in this. I said, mate, I reckon that's where the argument started. So he hasn't called me back yet, but I'm just waiting for it. All right. I told you about Barclay being a great place to grow up. We spent a lot of time during our school holidays working in the family shearing shed. And I suppose when I think about it, that was the only way the old man could really afford to have sheep back in those days and do the clip was to have all the family pitch in. We couldn't afford rouseabouts and that in those days. But we had lots of different jobs. We'd be driving the sheep and bringing them in and penning them up, drafting them off and all that stuff, sweeping the boards. But I had one of the most important jobs you could have. I was just a little 6, 7-year-old fella, but I was the shed cockatoo. You know what the cockatoo does? Yeah, he's a lookout. See, back in those days, the shed was really no place for ladies to be. The language and behaviour of all the shearers and rousies was pretty bad. So the only time you ever really saw the women coming down to the sheds was around smoko time. Things have changed these days and women work professionally in the sheds, and that's the way it should be. But come smoko time, just before that, the boys would be trying to get the last 2 or 3 fleeces in the top of the press. So they'd lift me up and I'd be pushing them down into the corners of the press with me feet. And from that vantage point, I could look up through the window to the homestead and I'd see me mum and auntie coming down with a smoko basket. So I'd warn the shed with that secret code. Oi, ducks on the pond. You heard that one? Yeah, they still use it today. So this one's called Ducks on the Pond, and it's dedicated to all those wonderful ladies that have kept the wheels of the shearing industry ticking over down through the years. Well, the shearing shed was in full swing. 3 stands on the go. The ringer and the other 2 were going blow for blow. And much to the amusement of all the other blokes, the rouseabout was in fine voice, reeling off the jokes. Now he was halfway through that yarn about the bishop and the blonde when the warning came around the shed. Oi, ducks on the pond. An uneasy silence quickly fell across the shearing floor, because each bloke knew this warning meant there's a woman at the door. Now, folks, if there's one thing that really drives a shearing team insane, it's when a woman infiltrates their one true man's domain. Well, it means a bloke can't fart or swear or tell a dirty joke. It takes away them basic rights, it makes a bloke a bloke. So when the door rolled open and the boss's wife walked in, the patience of the shearers was already growing thin. She placed her smoko basket on the bench beside the stand, then she stood and watched the ringer as he took a ewe in hand. Now he sensed that she was watching and his nerves began to grow as he trimmed around the old girl's face, then down the belly-o. But typical of Murphy's Law, things didn't go as planned, and the old ewe nearly kicked the piece from out the ringer's hand. Now if the woman wasn't watching, geez, he would have cursed and sworn. But experience was with him from the many sheds he'd shorn. He just waited till the time was right to slip a sly one in. Then he quickly brought the handpiece back across the old ew's chin. But the moment that he struck the blow, the woman looked around. She stood there with her hands on hips, made a fearful frown. That's no way to treat a lady, the boss's wife exclaimed. Sheep has feelings too, you know, you ought to be ashamed. Well, geez, I'm sorry, miss, the ringer said. I never meant no harm, but when it comes to me and ladies, see, I lack a bit of charm. You don't get a lot of practice when you lead a shearer's life, so I reckon that's why a mug like me has never had a wife. Nah, enough of your excuses, sir, exclaimed the boss's wife. I'm sure there's got to be a special lady in your life. So here's your chance to practice for the next time that you meet. And maybe, if you hone her skills, then you'll sweep her off her feet. Well, yeah, there is one special Sheila and I like to treat her nice. So I'll treat this old ewe just the same. I'll take on your advice. He slowly ran the handpiece up and down the old ew's thighs. The softness of the ringer's touch took the whole shed by surprise, and he skillfully removed her fleece like they'd never seen before, as curls of soft, white, fluffy wool fell gently to the floor. Then he rolled her slowly on her side, and with warm caressing blows, he carefully undressed her from her head down to her toes. The other shearers watched in awe at the sensuous display. That ewe was putty in his hands as the ringer had his way. And as for the boss's missus, she was equally impressed. She could only ever dream of being so beautifully undressed. And she wondered how a bloke like him could never take a wife. If that's the way he treats the special lady in his life. Well, as the ringer put the handpiece down and kicked her out of gear, he gave that ewe a cuddle and he whispered, "Thank you, dear." Then he raised her slowly to her feet and with trembling fingertips slowly drew her face to his and kissed her on the lips. Then he pushed her gently down the race. Oh, but just before he did, took his wallet from the shelf and he paid her 50 quid. Thank you very much. Right, mate. Yeah. All right, folks, I'm going to be back shortly. I'm going to hand you back over to the rhymer from Ryde. Thanks for coming out. Keep coming, folks. There's plenty more to be heard down here at the Poets' Breakfast this morning. Thank you.
Let's keep that applause going, folks, for one of Australia's premier poets, Mr. Colin Driscoll. All right, before we have our next featured poet up, we're going to have some walk-ups from some friendly faces from the crowd. So joining us shortly, and in this order, will be Howard James, Luke Robinson, Linda Bick, and Ivan Bashir, I believe. Where are you, Ivan? No, he's just buggered off, has he? Well, someone go and grab Ivan, because we're going to put him on if he's ready. All right, so as I said, a very important part of the Poets' Breakfast and what we do here for you folks is showcase all the new talent that's coming through around the traps. And it's a great honour to this morning bring to the stage from the Adelaide Hills, Mr. Howard James.
Good morning, how are you all? Okay, this is a poem that I actually wrote as a song many years ago, and it comes out better as a poem. And it's all about a mountain cattleman in the high country of Victoria who was into do-it-yourself in a big way. You'll get the drift. The song's called, or the poem's called, From the Horse's Mouth. Now, the old man hated city life. He stayed well clear of towns. High in the mountain country was where he could be found, driving cattle to the snow plains or going to bring them back, telling yarns and writing poems as he rode on the track. Now, as much as he loved the city life, much as he hated city life, he loved a country dance. He'd don his favourite checkered shirt and a fancy pair of pants. To the local hall he'd go to dance the night away, with his eye on all the Sheilas. To the last dance he would stay. Now, one time while trying to start a pump, the crank handle did slip. It came right off the crankshaft and smacked him on the lip. Although it caused his mouth to bleed, he didn't realise the mishap had broken an incisor and left a great big gap. At tea that night, his daughter said, "What happened to your tooth?" He had no idea what she meant. He'd come to no mischief. When she pointed out his broken peg, it made sense to him now as to what those little white things were that fell out of his mouth. Then she said he couldn't go to the dance on Saturday night till he'd been to see a dentist and had his mouth put right. He looked at her with horror. It caused his face to frown, 'cause going to the dentist meant he had to go to town. Bugger that for a joke, he thought with more than a little disdain. Dentists, what do they know? All they cause is bloody pain. And he fretted all night on going to town, and he got little rest. So there was no way he was going to see that highly paid saddest. He remembered his old faithful horse. He used to call him Snow, who had gone lame and was put down quite some time ago. He went to where the carcass was, the bones lay all about, and with a pair of fencing pliers, he yanked a front tooth out. Oh, you've heard it, have you? He took it to his dental lab, really his workshop, and worked with file and grinder to get it into shape. Patiently he worked away on this new pearly white, then he stuck it in his mouth with araldite. With his brand new clacker, he smiled to his lass. With no gap in his mouth now, he could go and join the mass at the hall on Saturday night, and the daughter was impressed that he had the nerve to go to town to fix his dental mess. Now, the daughter danced the night away with many a likely lad, including the local dentist she thought had fixed her dad. When she thanked him, he said to her, "Whatever do you mean? I've never ever met your dad. To me, he's never been." She then went to her dad and asked him who had done the job, and was lost for words when he said that it came from his old cob. Now the dentist, he examined that tooth, and he said with some glee, "You should give up farming, mate, and take up dentistry." Now for all his days, the old man never suffered from ill health. And as for problems with his teeth, well, he'd fix them up himself. And when he met with all his mates to have a big carouse, he would boast that his new tooth came from the horse's mouth.
He's a scruffy looking bugger. That was pretty bloody good though, wasn't it, eh? Keep that applause going for Howard James. Good on you, mate. I normally work with Howard at the Man from Snowy River Festival over at Corryong, and that's coming up in the middle of April, folks, so that's a good one. Don't miss out on that one. All right, Luke Robinson is wandering around the stage. Oh, here he comes from Win Win up near Lismore. He's one of the featured musos this weekend. He'll be doing some solo work and some duo work. Please say good day to Luke Robinson.
Thanks, mate. Good to see all you guys here again. I'm going to do a poem today, which you might have heard last night in another form, but I hope it's not too boring to you to hear it again. It often works well if it's a spoken word as well. So this is called A Pig Called Progress. Let me tell you a little story about a pig called Progress. He actually started out quite small. He was a shy little runt, lots of go and lots of grunt, and quite a country appetite for more. Yeah, he was full of promise, and so I called him Progress, and that piglet really took his name to heart. I'd feed him what he wanted, and around that sty he'd saunter, ordering all his food a la carte. Well, he shot up through the sizes, and he picked up all the prizes for the biggest and the best in his class. And as his girth grew wide, so too his porcine pride. He really was becoming quite an ass. But the pig was a trendsetter. Convinced me bigger's always better. There could be no limits to his growth. Endlessly I fed the beast my future famine for his feast. It was progress or your life. You can't have both. Well, he ate me out of house and home. He ate my old effing farm, and the place, it was covered with his shit. He drank the dams and rivers dry, and his filthy farting filled the sky, while I just stood by soaking in his piss. Well, he ate his sis sufficiency. He ate his ma modesty, his bro beneficence, and his father finitude. Then he turned and ate the workers, and that baconite berserker was even eyeing off me children too. Well, finally, I had enough. I threatened some correction. I'd take him to the market. Yeah, and I'd bring me home the bacon. Well, such porky pies. He called me bluff. I'd never fit him in that truck. He'd stay right here and keep on eating. So I called around me mates, and we manned the barricades. Yeah, we'd trap him in that pen and then take him down. Well, he grunted and he snorted. It was we who'd face the slaughter. Then he charged and ran us all to ground. But it was in me French mate Monty. Progress finally met his match. He said, forget about the guillotine, the musket, or the axe. You see that pig's about to burst? No, he wouldn't be the first. The only thing he needs is one more wafer. So he popped down to the church, and he fetched the Eucharist, the body for the pig, and blood for courage. Then back down at the sty, he looked Progress in the eye and said, Monsieur Pig, we surrender. So please accept this little bread, this token of our awe and dread of you Progress, relentless force of nature. Well, the pig thought this plausible, surrender from a son of Gaul, but couldn't swallow transubstantiation. Anyway, the pig snaffled up the host, and we all drank a quick toast, then ran like hell and dived for cover. For finally Progress reached his limit, for no growth is infinite, and he exploded in a mess of bone and blubber. And when we finally emerged, his flesh covered the earth, and the rivers ran black with his blood. Well, the clean-up took us years of sweat, struggle, toil and tears. This lesson taught to every lass and lad. If you ever get a pig, don't let it get too big, for nothing can ever grow forever. And whatever you do, or you'll end up in the poo, don't call the bloody thing progress. Thank you.
Thanks for Luke Robinson. Alrighty. Okay, Linda Bick is our next lovely walk-up performer this morning. Linda's all the way from Port Lincoln. She's a singer-songwriter, and she's actually ridden her motorcycle all around the world. That's not a bad effort. Please say good day to Linda Bick.
Hello. You can tell I'm not a real poet because I haven't learnt the words off by heart. I learned them through my songs and actually did write this, but I thought this one was appropriate because it's about a music festival. well, not actually a festival. It was about a school where they taught Irish music, and it was in Ireland. And I was over there in 1995, when I was in my fiddle learning way. I try and learn different instruments, and I thought I'd go and try and learn the fiddle. So this is called Playing Music Way Out at Bog Hill, which is the name of the little village. There's jigs and there's reels in between meals at a table where you eat your fill, and laughter and jokes from all kinds of folks playing music way out at Bog Hill. There's peat out to dry 'neath a blue summer sky, or burnt on the fire when it's chill. There's a big pot of tea for whoever may be playing music way out at Bog Hill. You can get on your bike or go for a hike, or just read a book and be still. If you're looking for fun, there's a lot to be done playing music way out at Bog Hill. There's tunes from Clare or any old where being played at a pace that would kill in the sessions at night when you go for a pint playing music way out at Bog Hill. There's fiddles and flutes and banjos and lutes and whistles that play with a trill. There's cellos and drums and melodeons playing music way out at Bog Hill. Sure, it's grand to be there in the county of Clare, where the burren and cliffs cast their spell. There's plenty of crack, and you know you'll be back playing music way out at Bog Hill.
There we go. How good was that, Linda Beck? Hope we hear more of her over the course of the weekend for sure. That'd be great. All right, now, is there anyone else who'd like to put their name on the list for the walk-up session this morning? Any other takers? Nope. All right then, folks, we'll move back to the third of our featured poets for the weekend. He's none other than Ben Eggleton. He's from Ororo. He's known as the Bard from the Scrub, author, actor, raconteur, and general good bloke, Mr. Ben Eggleton.
Thank you very much, folks. Thanks for welcoming me back again this year. It's been a long road. I'm not a rhyming poet like the other blokes. I'm one of those strange people who write storyline. Hello, Andrew. Hi. Isn't he a lovely fellow? Big hand for our sound man. He's actually absolutely great. One of the best fiddle players I've ever heard in my life too. So he's a great bloke. I did a fringe festival last year with a bloke by the name of Glenn Skewthorpe. And we put a show together called River Dreaming. His 5-piece band and myself, and they played music behind my poetry. Well, I'm an anti-racist. I hate racism. And I woke up to a dream. The date was 5th of March. I woke up to a dream and I thought it was so real, and when I woke up I had to write about it. There was a fellow at the Pianta Theatre in Adelaide where we were performing, came in and he really tore strips off us, and because we were having a bit of a tat-a-tate between black fella and white fella, and I eventually got this bloke evicted and all hell broke loose. I wrote this piece called On the Inside. Woke up this morning after dreaming of friends of mine about how they'd been treated, about how I felt about all that. Came up with a policy clear, I thought you ought to know. Might help all those fools out there who believe they are better than the rest. I'm a white fella living in a black fella world. They are black fellas living in a white fella's world. On the inside I feel I'm a white fella in a black fella's skin. On the inside I feel I'm a black fella in a white fella's skin. I can live with that, because the colour of the skin, that don't matter at all. Not if you are a mind of tolerance. I can live with you as a brother. Skin don't matter at all. As a friend, that stuff inside can't hurt, so long as the heart forgives. We can walk hand in hand with one thing in mind, you see. The fact hurts, cursed so long ago by all those fellas, black or white, been gone so long now that we should bury the hatchet so deep so it can't ever hurt us again. I'm a white fella living in a black fella's world. They are black fellas living in a white fella's world. On the inside, I feel I'm a white fella in a black fella's skin. On the inside, I feel I'm a black fella in a white fella's skin. Thank you very much. So, so we had a great show. It was a really good show that we put on. And, we did 3 fringe shows, and I'd never done a fringe show before. And it was rather interesting having music and everything playing behind my poetry. I met a woman over 50 years ago, and I married her. We just celebrated our 49th anniversary, and I was sitting down a few weeks ago, and I reflected back on our children, our lives, and all the things that we've been through, and all the years. And I wrote a little piece called Fibber and Co. And it's a little story about how we age and the journey through life. When I was 20, I married a girl, a beauty, moved in, set up house. Her beauty demanded a purchase to make, a looking glass by Fibber and Co. Now, at a gentle 20 with that glass shone youth, a new wife, young, vital, a proud lad, the winner. A hard road we began, those young faces, looked back by Fibber and Co. Well, 30 came around too soon, and youth not so, still shone. Procreate youth came, innocent, beautiful youth, a proud mum and a proud dad. That hard road kept rolling, its years rolling on fast. Creeping age by Fibber and Co. 40 rolled in like a train, and the youth becoming not so shiny. Procreate done and dusted, beautiful souls emerging life. Still proud mum and dad. Hard road still crawling us on, slowing a little now. Snow appearing, as well as the other stuff that goes with it. And I looked, who is that? By Fibber and Co. 50 clambered right over us, no shine of youth anymore, and procreate now procreating, beautiful grandy souls. Even more pride in mum and dad. That road's slowing now, faster. The snowstorm blew in. Are you lying, Fibber and Co? Well, 60 hit like a hard rain, slams shut any youth. Our kids and theirs growing into that we had been. Still our pride stand tall, our roads end not too far. We are white, we are being led by Looking Glass, Fibber and Co. Well, we'll see about 70. In a year or so, I might even throw out that bloody Fibber and Co. I live up in the Southern Flinders Ranges, and it's about 700-800 k's from here. Southern Flinders Ranges, outback, red dirt, nice Flinders Ranges scenery all around us. And I was sitting there and I'm thinking the other day about, a few weeks ago, about common sense. Common sense in a world where it's quiet, I can think about these things, because in a city you can't think about it. It's just too rushed, too busy. And I wrote this thing, may common sense prevail. As we know, common sense is a very, very hard thing to find these days. There's too much bullshit in this world, and too much, what would you call it, protocol, too much, political correctness. Thank you very much. That was, so I wrote this, May Common Sense Prevail. The wheels of time just keep rolling on, passing into time those things of yesterday. The next bend swallows the wheels of time that roll towards tomorrow, not knowing where it goes. Yesterday's news has faded as each sunset comes. History is faded pages that denigrate in time. Can we rely on history told to gain a vision of where the future goes? The mistakes made, maybe to come back to reinfect. Recorded history tells us about where we went right, about where we went wrong. Common sense will guide us right. Let us all obey that common sense and not to follow the mistakes. Put our wheels on the right rail and everybody stay home. Think of others who may suffer and think of others and leave self behind. Think of others for all our sakes. The sunrise tomorrow on the right rail. How much time have I got on, mate? 5 minutes or so? All right, let's see what we can find. You know, I have a lot of dreams about things, and I have one that came to me, and it was almost absolutely in reality. It was the week we lost Archie Roach. It was the week we lost Judith. It was the week we lost Dame. Our Dame, I'm horrible on names. Dame Olivia. And the week we lost a very darling friend of mine. It was my wife's bridesmaid, and she was my first girlfriend. So there's a bit of a mixed up story, but and she died just all in the same week. And I had a pretty down week that week about all that. And this dream came to me, and fair dinkum, I thought it was so real. I do a lot of camping and a lot of campfire stuff, and I do a lot of poetry around campfires and everything all over the place. It's called My Dreaming Campfire. Yesterday my day was so busy, 'twas early to bed last night. Sleep claimed me in a thrice, sent me into a slumber of peace, into a dream time of reflection, to a campfire of spiritual reckoning. Around that campfire was joy and music, a gathering of souls just departed. I can't ever imagine that in my lifetime, walking on this earth, how this Aussie, this poet of yours, would ever have had a privilege such as my dream time gave. Like a storybook written by fate's hand, to be invited to share a campfire glow within my mind's eye, these beautiful souls freshly departed this earthly domain. These souls last night shared with me their songs, their spiritual insights, their love for what their lives gave, their life, their loves, children and theirs, the blessings they had been given. Not a disparaging word was passed about how it should have been, just warmth of gratefulness shared. Uncle Archie was there, Auntie Ruby, their hands clasped together in peace. Dame Olivia in fine voice, her face glowing, in the firelight reflection, her smile bright. Judith sitting, humming Morningtown Ryde, swaying to and fro in a rhythm to her soul. And my friend Joy with her bright blue eyes, growing refreshed, her pain all gone. I've been blessed to walk and sit in a dream time. I know not where it came from. To spend these moments within the presence of spirits who have touched so many, have walked their human lives heads high, now in their spirit life have passed their banner to the living for their life's work to continue, to complete that journey for mankind's good. So veil to our heroes, a memory to share. May we walk in their shadows to understand, to work together as was their wont, towards peace and love for all who knew them or not. Thank you very much, folks.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen, the bard from the scrub, Ben Eggleton. Yeah, that's right, folks. Once the Poets' Breakfast finished, we do have some product from the artists on the table there, so make sure you go and have a look at that and support the artists so they can come back and do it all again next year. That'd be great. Right, we're going to go back and have a round of our wonderful walk-up poets now. So if I can just find out whether the following people are still here. I know Howard's at the side of the stage ready to go. Luke Robinson. Still here, Luke? Got another poem, mate? All right, okay, and Linda Beck. Bet you, Linda? Yep, hands up all around, that's great. So, welcome back to the stage, folks, all the way from the Adelaide Hills, Mr. Howard James. He's a singer-songwriter and man about town, and he's currently warming up the iPad where the words are being hidden. So, after the Poets' Breakfast finishes this morning at 10:30, I'll be running a Poets' Workshop over at the Poets' Marquee, which is on the other side of the Oval. So if you'd like to talk about performing bush poetry or any sort of poetry, or just like to have a general chat about things, come and see me in the Marquee. We'll be going there from 11 a.m. till midday. And then the Poets' Marquee will be open for business for the rest of the weekend. Any time of the day or night, if you want to wander over to the Poets' Marquee and strut your stuff, have a bit of a go over there for the crowd, then you're welcome to do that, folks. It's a pretty open situation. Not much in the way of rules and regulations over there. Just coming over, join us, spin a few yarns, do a few poems, and we'll all have a heap of fun over at the Poets' Marquee. And now he's ready. So I'll bugger off and introduce once again Mr. Howard James.
Okay, this is a song that was written by, a parody of a song that was written by Eric Bogle. And it was done at the National Folk Festival in front of Eric, and the lady survived to tell the story. And it's actually recorded somewhere. Do you know that song they call Willie McBride? If I hear it once more, it'll turn me insides. It's sung in the springtime and it's sung in the fall, most often by people who can't sing at all. Now, you've gone to the pub on a Saturday night for a pint and a song, everything is all right, till some drunken bosie sits down by your side saying, "Hey, give us that one about Willie McBride." Well, you swear you don't know it, but that will not do, because now he's determined to sing it to you. Spills half your drink as he starts in a key that bears no resemblance to G, C or D. And as time goes on, sure it only gets worse, because you soon realise he knows every verse. With his arm round your shoulder, for now he's your friend, determined to sing the whole song to the end. Do they sing the song badly? Do they sing the pints madly? Do the drunks fall asleep as they lower them down? Do the bar staff shout, "Last drinks," in chorus? Do the people think, "Thank Christ that's over"? Well, you go to the Jacks for a quarter of an hour and you watch the TV in the old public bar, and when you return you are sure he'll have tired, but he's still going on about gas and barbed wire. With his eyes tightly closed as if he's in a trance, he's still up to his arse in the green fields of France. Look round the bar room, there's barely a peep. Does he not realise that we've all gone to sleep? Now, Willie McBride, why did you have to die? All the trouble you'd have saved if you'd come home alive. Maybe got a wee job or signed with a crew, when we wouldn't have to listen to these songs about you. But now come to think of it, I'm glad that you're dead with the green fields of France piled on top of your head. All the trouble you've caused since that day that you died. Shooting was too good for you, Willie McBride.
I don't know that Eric Bogle's had the right of reply yet, but I think he probably should. Good on you, Howard James. More applause for Howard. Coming up, Luke. A long way to go, mate. Chop, chop. Times are wasting. All right, from Win-Win near Lismore. He's one of the featured musos this weekend. Once again, Luke Robinson.
I reckon Eric probably would have loved that. He's got a great sense of humour. So I'm going to do a poem called Aussie Mongrels. It's about the wonder of being a mongrel nation that we are in Australia. It's a good thing. We're stronger for it all. From Cockle Creek to Cape York, Carnarvon to Cronulla, I see a mongrel nation of every shade and colour. Black and white and grey, blue and brown and red. One thing you can be sure, there's no bloody purebreds. Yeah, we may be a little rough and a tad undisciplined. Though no man's our master, you won't find a better friend. We may be promiscuous and we don't do purity, but we're stronger for it all. So let's hear our mongrel creed. I'm a mongrel, and you're a mongrel too. We're all bloody mongrels, Aussie mongrels, me and you. Yeah, I'm a mongrel, and you're a mongrel too. We're all bloody mongrels, Aussie mongrels, me and you. Now some yelp, we're patriots. Howl at a crescent moon, and snarl like the Southern Cross is somehow theirs to own. Some growl, I'm not a breedist, but their arsehole's still the same. They bark a lot of shit about backyards they would reclaim. Over the bones of dingoes buried, still below a Union Jack, while Mother England's whine and pups cry, F off, send them back. Well, remember, we're all mutts here. Forget your pedigrees. We're all bloody mongrels. There's no pure Aussie breed. Yeah, we've bitched about them all. The Irish and Chinese. We bitched about the Greeks, the Italians and Maltese. And we bitched about the Arabs, the Slavs and Vietnamese. And now we bitched about the Indians, Afghans and Sudanese. Oh, yes, we like to bitch and have a good old wine. With every new smell, oh, we lose our bloody minds. They don't understand our way of life. Oh, they don't like fitting in. They don't woof proper Australian. No, they're really not fair dinkum. Well, maybe the dingoes could rightly make that claim, but all us bastards ints, well, we still bear a migrant's name. And then one day we all get over it and toast our Aussie luck to work and play together, to share our food and frolic with each other. Every dog and every bitzer, every bloke and every Sheila, and all those both or neither. Yeah, we all bay together. I'm a mongrel. And you're a mongrel too. Well, bloody mongrels, Aussie mongrels, me and you. Yeah, I'm a mongrel, and you're a mongrel too. We're all bloody mongrels, Aussie mongrels, me and you. Thank you.
Speak for yourself, mate. Bloody mongrels. I don't know. All right, Linda Bick, where are you, Linda? Here she comes. Linda's from Port Lincoln, as I said before. She's had the marvellous experience of riding a motorbike around the world. Hopefully it was with a few mates. Was it, Linda? No? On her own. Okay, seeing the world. That's what I like to hear. Linda Bick.
Okay, well, just as I mentioned, you know, I do ride motorbikes, and I have done a lot of journeys, and I've actually just found a poem that I wrote about one of these journeys that I did in 1974, I think it was, 75, when I went down through Africa, and yeah, it was a long time ago. The poem's not that long, but it's longer than the last one. It's called An African Odyssey. Finding facts to start the journey, equip the bike and say farewells. Leaving shores of Mother England, what lies ahead, no one can tell. Morocco with its wool jalabas, spiced-filled markets, mountains high, through the snow, then down to the desert, to palm trees and a star-filled sky. Sahara sand is next to battle, corrugations do their worst. Blue-clad Tuaregs driving lorries help transport a bike that's bust. Leaving camels and silver crosses, black figures now appear instead. Smiling ladies in coloured cotton balance baskets on their heads. In a land of changing conflicts, Fort Lamy is the place to be, where fighting men from around the world give the French Foreign Legion their loyalty. Camped beside the Ubangi River, prized possessions go astray, but heading on unto the jungle, butterflies flit and monkeys play. As rain falls down, the mud gets deeper. Log bridges span the swollen streams. Each day is a constant battle, and bitumen roads are in my dreams. Are there gorillas in the mist? In volcanic country with mountain high, Serengeti's wildlife banned for BMs, and now sealed roads I can espy. At City Park the travellers gather, there's many a tale that's tall and true, with the jungle dangers now behind it, southward to adventures new. Mount Kenya conquered, the east coast beckons, coral reefs and graceful dhows. Poly is a haven, but there malaria lays me low. Meerschaum pipes in Tasmania, then elephants and a copper mine. Lusaka police are causing trouble, but I escape without a fine. Between black and white the border runs, the smoke that thunders, so they say. Uneasy peace on either side, while rainbows shine amidst the spray. At last Rhodesia smiles a welcome. Southern Africa a change indeed. A broken valve then halts the progress, but soon is fixed by friends in need. A job at last, but not for long. With BM fixed I take the road to find the city of gold and diamonds, and to its portals I am towed. Durban dazzles with its friendships, pilot boats and breakfast runs. BM rebuilt, I leave with sadness to forsake the laugh and fun. Now can I shout at the devil as my trip is near its end, like an ostrich ignore the future and put my head down in the sand. Table Mountain shouts the message, a ship awaits me at the quay. Now time to bid Africa adieu. Will I return another day? So that's the story of how I did ride this 1957 model BMW down through Africa. And I have been back, but only briefly. Thank you very much.
There we go, Linda Beck. More for Linda. So, Liz, we have to finish at 10:25. That's right, is it? All right, folks, so time's against us now. So what we're going to do, we're going to run through the featured poets again. They can do a poem, and that'll probably take us to the end of the Poets' Breakfast. But don't forget, if you'd like to have a chat about bush poetry generally, and you'd like to come to my workshop on performance poetry, that'll be starting at 11 a.m. through to midday over in the Poets' Marquee. After that, the Poets' Marquee turns into an open forum, so anyone that wants to come along, have a chat, spin a yarn, tell a joke, play the spoons, anything like that, anything you'd like to do, you can do all of that in the Poets' Marquee, and that'll be operating from midday right through for the rest of the festival. All right, I think one of the few comedic things to come out of the whole COVID crisis was the loo paper shortage. I just could not believe the scenes of mass panic in the supermarket that I was seeing on my television screen. So this is my take on that particular situation. I called it Caught Short. I've heard of this thing called Corona. Of its impact there can be no doubt. But how did this thing called Corona coincide with a tea paper drought? The last time I tried a Corona, well, it filled me with bliss and with cheer. A soft golden glow in the bottle. It was Mexico's pride in a beer. Well, I went off to do weekly shopping. What the hell? There's a bloody big queue. There's chaos with mad panic buying. And it all has to do with your loo. It looked like a scene from the wrestling. All those grapplers you see on TV. Their trolleys were stacked overflowing to stock up for their lavatory. So all of a sudden there's shortage. What the hell am I going to do? Next time that I go spend a penny on my phone when I'm doing a crossword puzzle. Caught up in this consumer madness, they sold 12 million packets a week. That's 3 rolls per cheek there per person. How much loo paper there do you seek? Because of this lockdown and hoarding, I'll be needing an alternate source. Next time that I pamper my buttocks in my thunderbox, well, yes, of course. In only a week there were problems. The government said, "That's not funny. You're blocking the S-bends and septics with stuff that you flush down the dunny. There's newspaper stuck in the piping. There's paper towel, handwritten mails. There's tissues and wet wipes and money that's used when you're washing your tail." Now, money, I thought. That's a strange one. It must be the size of the bills. Next time I might use a few hundreds. Yeah, try spending my cash for a thrill. A newspaper. That got me thinking. What local rag covers your beat? The Australian, I think, has the answer in that format they call a spreadsheet. Oh, it's best to steer clear of the glossies. They're all shiny and smooth. They'd be crook. In time, if our fix becomes desperate, you could always use Turnbull's new book. Well, this strife turned us all into criminals. We were stealing from motels, rest stops. A result of this COVID pandemic. Things so crazy they called in the cops. Pinching rolls from our parks' public toilets in our craving for more double length. Non-tear weave if it comes multi-layered. Sorbent Kleenex if it's triple strength. I found late at night I was dreaming of my bottom caressed by 3-ply. My bum snuggled up in its softness. King-size sheets, yes, I cannot deny. My gluteus maximus sleeping on unscented quilt and bleach-free. Aldi's confidence, non-allergenic. It's so soft, natural there for me. In overseas climes, there's no problems. In those countries, a little risque. The sanctity of foreign bathrooms, where they use, how you say it, bidets. In Italy, France, Venezuela, they are laughing at down under folk, still wiping their bums with tree products. Yes, we've become the butt of their joke. So back in Australia, we're struggling when we go off to powder our nose. To answer the great call of nature, in my Kazi, I sit indisposed. I stare at this page from my notebook and I think, ha, there's 99 more. My problem is solved for the moment. So excuse me, I must shut the door. All right, Colin, your turn, mate. Come on up and straight to stuff. We'll have Colin, then we'll have Ben, and that'll be just about it for the breakfast this morning. Colin Driscoll.
Thanks, Graeme. Big hand for Graeme Johnson, folks. Doing a great job. Good to catch up with him again. Do have some CDs over here, and I know Ben's got a book. You got some CDs as well, Graeme? No? Come over. We'll do you a deal today. I think, you know, we'll look after you guys. If you come and buy a CD off us, happy to take your money. Take it home, have a listen. If you don't like it, just send it straight back, and I'll send you a CD that I don't like. I think that's fair. What do you reckon? But all the artists this weekend will have merchandise and stuff, folks, and that puts a few bucks in our pockets for diesel and that sort of stuff, so we can see you at the next festival on the Loop. This one's been going for about 6 years, a bit of a tradition now, Sandford, and I love tradition. Hands up those that love tradition. I think it's great, and there's some great Aussie traditions, but I'm part of a tradition that goes back about, well, this coming November, it'll be about 42 years. And it's a thing, it's one of those male bonding weekends, those boys' weekends, where a handful of us get together. You know the sort of thing I'm talking about, fellas, where you get together with a group of mates and you braid each other's hair and swap Cosmopolitan magazines and talk about your innermost feelings, and then drink enough beer, you throw them up about half an hour later. No, it's a great weekend, and we head down to a place on the Great Ocean Road called Johanna Beach. Anyone been down to Johanna Beach? If you want to get away from the world, get down to Johanna, and we drink. We get down there on the Friday night, set up our camp, and then we drink beer from 10 in the morning till 10 at night. That was the old pub hours. And for want of a better name, we come up with the 10 till 10. It's been known as that, as I said, coming up 42 years. We don't get in any trouble. We just get up to good fun with good mates. And sometimes when you don't try too hard, some of the best things happen. This is a classic example of something that happened down there at the 10 till 10. It's not a religious poem, although it's called My God, My Light. So gather round, my learned friends, and the tale I will recite about an incident that took place at Joanna Beach one night. Now there's just one point that I must stress before my story starts. The incident of which I speak is now folklore around them parts. Well, the air was damp and the moon was high, and the time, as I remember, was 9 o'clock Friday night, third week in November. We were sitting around the campfire, just your average bunch of men, and we were there in preparation for the next day's 10 till 10. Well, the tents were up, we'd had a feed, and we were contemplating bed, but we decided that we still had time for one last glass of red. Old Jock had risen to his feet. Geez, I shouldn't have had that feed. No, I've had a crook gut all this week, it's the last thing that I need. Well, the strain was showing on his face as he slipped his belt a notch. Then he backed his arse up to the fire and slowly scratched his crotch. Then he headed for the dunny, fearing for the worst. Geez, I think I better go, he said. I feel like I might burst. Now, the path up to the toilet was rather dark that night, so he took his little torch with him to provide him with some light. He reached the door in record time, ventured on inside, backed up to the dunny seat and quickly dropped his strides. Then he gazed around the cubicle, for he was now in search of somewhere safe and stable to place his little torch. Well, he sat it on the stainless box where the toilet paper's found, and he strategically positioned it so the light shone all around. Then he slapped his bum down on the seat, grit his teeth with force, and he gave one God almighty groan as nature took its course. Now let me pause for just one sec while I explain to you that the building where this all took place was not your average loo. It was just a 15-foot deep hole with a toilet seat on top, 4 tin walls, lean-to roof, your classic bush long drop. So you can just imagine the condition of that pit. Because you couldn't flush the thing, it remained full of it. Now, we'll get back to the story and we'll focus back on Jock, who by this time was sitting picking grass seeds from his sock. Why, what do you think I was going to say? Old matey is following the rhyme and you think, what's wrong with Jock? Oh, here we go. He's picking grass seeds from his sock. He leaned his back against the wall and he sighed in sheer relief, unaware that this period of contentment would be brief. For while reaching for the paper, he made an awkward lurch and he bumped the box, which caused the torch to go flying from its perch. Now, it could have landed anywhere, but one must question why it chose to fall down through the gap between his old bloke and his thigh. It tumbled through the darkness, and when it finally hit, that torch had landed upright in the contents of that pit. He looked down in amazement. He could not believe his eyes as this feeble ray of light shone up between his pimply thighs. Then the torch started moving in the sawdust and the maggots. Actually, the bloke with the potatoes is open over here, folks, if you want to get a feed after too. With the sawdust and the maggots, and the light beam changed trajectory and it focused on his agates. And then Jock looked up and he saw a sight too hideous to recall. His testicles in silhouette upon the shithouse wall. Well, he quickly pulled his trousers up and he bolted down the track, cursing when he realised he'd forgot to wipe his clack. But no, he couldn't wait to tell us of the event that just took place, and geez, we knew it was a pisser by the look upon his face. Well, when he told us what had happened, geez, we laughed until we cried. Then we ventured to the shithouse just to take a look inside. We slowly opened up the door and gazing at the bowl, we marvelled at this eerie light coming from the hole. And as we gazed into that long drop, not one man spoke a word, for there was Jock's old trusty torch, still shining undeterred. Actually, that's good writing. You give that a round of applause right now, because you'll learn about that stuff with his... Hang on, I haven't finished yet. You'll learn about that at the workshop. Well, we thought of ways to get it out, but decided not to try, because I tell you, folks, a stench alone was enough to make you cry. So it shone there, through the wee small hours, like a beacon guiding ships enlightening those who ventured up on their desperate midnight trips. But when morning finally came around, his torch was gone from sight. I need a big sigh at the end of this next line, you ready? But no longer would old Jock enjoy the comfort of its light. You idiots. Now, when I travel down that way and I need to make a stop, I just aim me car for Labour's Hill and I pull in at the shop. I buy myself a coffee, I sit out on the porch and I chuckle as I reminisce the night Jock dropped his torch. That's a true story. Thank you.
Thanks, I think. All right, one more poem from Ben Eggleton to finish off the breakfast this morning, folks. Here he comes.
God forbid, don't ever drop your bloody torch. Well, folks, been a good poet's breakfast. As you said, remember there's merchandise over here if you want to have a look at that. And happy to do signings and the rest of it. We go back and we're talking about learning how to write, putting words together, and the workshop will actually teach you how to do that and polish up the way to do things. Akubra's Linen and Lace is a story I wrote about Western New South Wales, about a bloke that went out and took up selection out in the black soil country, and he wanted a wife. He went and found one in Sydney, but he didn't believe it. Just a bit of Australiana. Dusty Akubra sitting atop a head full of hair. 70-day growth hanging off a dusty face. Blue eyes, just hoping one day soon they'll see that gentle smile that you throw my way in my mind. The first time I touched your hand, I never thought it could be. A gentle soul such as you would ever ask me back again. In your world of linen and lace, could a dusty man of the land ever believe a lady of grace would ever fall in love out here? Out here, where dust always blows in your eyes and up your nose, then in places a man shouldn't say. Out here, where linen and lace is hardly ever seen displayed, beside cattle skins and dungarees, bag walls and camp oven pots, where we sleep upon the ground. Just writing this letter whilst driving on the back of my horse, thinking of you sipping tea, reading what I say, smiling, I hope, at my silly thoughts of me, writing to you, a lady of linen and lace, about my harsh lifestyle living, just hoping you could fall in love. Well, blow me down, a letter did turn up, out here on the dusty black soil plains, wrapped around it linen and lace, tied with a ribbon of silk, tainted with the hint of old roses. My heart fairly skipped a beat. You didn't think me that silly at all. You'd been waiting all along. Well, my girl, that was years ago, where there were bag walls and camp ovens and cattle skins and dungarees and hip holes in hard ground where I slept. Now we sit, hands clasped together, the wind blowing dust across lawns, our rockers creaking together in rhythm, resting on my knee, my Akubra, dusty. Upon the sweatband, space, tied tight, linen and lace, dusty and faded with time, never to leave its place of pride and right, but to ride with me when they lay me under. Thank you very much, folks. And be here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and we'll do it all again.
We will indeed. Ben Eggleton, another big round of applause, folks. And keep that applause going for all our wonderful poets this morning. Colin Driscoll, the other featured poet, and our lovely walk-ups, Linda, Howard and Luke. I'm the rhymer from Ryde. We'll see you again.